Hi there, welcome back. Some other things I wanted to mention is throughout this series of videos, I don't think I really much mentioned any friends of mine. I had some really great friends, and at about the age of 35, I had between 4 and 5. One of my very good friends is no longer with us, unfortunately. But I had another 4 very good, close friends that I'd had for a long time. And at about the age of 35, I was beginning to become really weary about my the reality of my situation, which was I had I was very upset about my parents throwing away those X-rays. I wanted to clear my name in terms of being considered by them delusional, and those were my way to do that. And I suspected for a long time that they had been thrown away, and eventually got the courage to ask them, and my mother, and it was confirmed. That was I didn't know how to approach that to my friends. I had spoken to people in the past, and that never went well. My financial situation at that point, because Barb Rich and Toshio Okamura had put me at such a perilous position, and then my inability to do my taxes, I was very disheartened by it. I was very concerned that it was going to ruin my life, and I had to rely on the IRS to allow me to fix that. I would realize just how serious that was throughout the years. The longer and longer I attempt every year, multiple times I would attempt to get my taxes done, and no accountants wanted to touch them. The IRS wouldn't just tell me what they simply needed for me to do my taxes properly for them to accept them. I was trapped, and I began drinking too, and I would do it more than I should have been, and because I was always very health conscious, but I was in such a state of desperation, and I couldn't rely on my sorry, there was a car horn going off. I couldn't rely. It wasn't about me relying on my ability to lift myself out of the situation. There were I required permission by the authorities in charge of these issues to allow me to get out of this problem. So I needed the IRS to grant me permission to do my taxes, which will allow me to escape this, renting, and move forward and build a life for myself, get a home. I also needed a doctor. This is moving on a couple years after that. I needed a doctor to authorize I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I needed a doctor to give me oh my goodness, I needed a rheumatologist, and I'm sorry, car horns, the car alarms, they go off here, and it really, it's one of the things that, it's like my residual, what lingers from my OCD is certain sounds, and car alarms are one of those things, and it's a constant thing here, and it's basically fear. I fear that it's going to set off what in the past it would set off, and it's just fear is what it is. So it throws me, it really distracts me, and I apologize. So I was at the mercy of the IRS and doctors to allow my life to progress. Needed to regain my health, and that was something that my doctors were withholding from me by not allowing me to, by not granting me access to a rheumatologist. And the IRS was really holding me back. That was being trapped like that, with the only escape being permission by those authorities. Really, drinking was a way to cope with it, and I only intended to do that temporarily. But I can't tell you how much it was helpful. At the end of a hard day of work, knowing that that work would amount to absolutely nothing but simply paying more rent, my ability to pay more rent, but I was not achieving any. I wasn't digging myself out of this hole at all, because the hole was the whether or not I got permission from these from these establishments that had authority, and man, I'm really not doing very well in this video. I did rely on drinking, and I would stop. I'd give myself some rest days here. I wouldn't drink, and I'd try to be healthy. I even stopped for 2 years when I started getting sick. I stopped for 2 years, and I was wondering if I thought, I've been drinking more than I should, and I thought, I wonder if I have any dependency on, physical dependency on this. So what I did over the course of those 2 years, I think I drank 4 times. What I did was the first time I said, okay, before I drink, I'm going to determine the amount that I'm going to drink, and I'm going to stop at that amount. So that was 1 drink. I'm like, I'll drink 1 drink, and then I'll stop. And I did that. That was fine. And then a few months later, I think I drank like 2 or 3. But I always determined the amount before I started drinking, so that I would know if I had self-control to do that. And each time I did that I think it was 4 times over the 2 years, I would test myself like that. And I passed the test, and I thought, okay, I've got control over this. I'm good. But after those 2 years, I resumed. I used the drinking to and it is helpful. Like when you're working and you've just got the weight of this on you. I don't mean to speak for you, but the weight of this on me during that workday, I'd say, man, at least I can go home and I can relax and get this off my mind, because the release that gave me, and the drinking gave me this optimism that everything was going to be okay. I would be able to almost fantasize about the life that I could have once these problems were taken care of. And that was so enormously helpful. It wasn't good for my health, for sure, but neither was not doing it, because the alternative was I was just so completely overwhelmed with anxiety, and it was just a really there was no real good answer. What I really needed was the doctors to do what they should do, and the IRS to do what it should do. And eventually that just never happened. I mention that because my mother is probably going to mention that, has probably mentioned to people that I revealed to her at some point. I'm like, I drink, more than I should, drink a lot. And I just wanted to say that because there's such a stigma surrounding alcohol. I did never consider myself an alcoholic, because I was using it for that period of time as a very necessary tool to get me through an impossible situation. This was not a situation where it just required more work on my part. I had to have permission to get out of this situation, and I was not being granted that permission. It's very important that I make that clear. I think one last thing in terms of my mother saying things about me that are untrue or not accurate. When I was sick, when I first came down with this OCD thing, and I took refuge at my parents' house, I had told my mother. Communicating was very, very difficult. I didn't want to talk to anyone at all, but I told my mother, can you explain to my boss, the owner of the hardwoods supplier, what's going on with me, so he knows. I sent him a text, but I didn't explain why I'm absent from work. So she should have known what was going on with me. It was apparent, and I had explained to her to the best of my ability what was going on with me, and she said she would, and then she showed me that she did it via text with him. And the text said, I'm just going to summarize this because I can't remember word for word, but essentially it said, Steve is, the reason for Steve's absence is because he is experiencing a mild form of OCD that he had when he was a child. So essentially saying that what I was experiencing then was a mild form of a more severe form of what I'm going through. And I had no idea what she was talking about. I said, what are you talking about? A mild? You think this is mild? I'm afraid I'm going to die right now. And she said, well, yeah, remember your socks? So this is what she's referring to. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. When I was younger, I must have been, it was before I moved out of my first childhood home, which I stayed until I was 5. So I was younger than 5. Or I was 5 or younger. I think I was probably between 3 and 4. Old enough to have memories. There was, my parents had bought me some socks. I don't know how many, but they were all similar. I think they were identical in the way they were made. These particular socks had a really thick seam across the toe, a really thick seam, and it was hard, and it was uncomfortable, maybe even painful. I really disliked these socks, and I would fuss with them. I would put I would put the socks on, and they were very uncomfortable, and putting my shoes on would press that seam against my foot even harder, and it was very uncomfortable. So I'd take my shoes off, I'd try to mess with the socks to make it better, but there was really no making it any better. But the time that I had these socks, I would mess with these things. That's what she was referring to. She considered that to be a more severe form of the OCD that I was experiencing, which resulted in essentially destroying my life. I couldn't. So I explained this to her that I didn't like. I tried to avoid confrontation. I was just baffled by how she could be she could consider that OCD, or if she did, that was a more severe form of it than what I was currently experiencing. So I just her lack of understanding. So, you know, part of this video series is my claim, which would be contrary to, it seems, my mother's claim, and maybe both of my parents' claims, is that I suffer from mental illness, and that I always have. Now, certainly OCD is a mental illness, but this was an abrupt, severe onset of OCD brought upon by exploitation of a traumatic incident that happened early in my life, and extreme stresses. I consider it to be, without an official diagnosis by a doctor, almost more akin to a nervous breakdown. And the way the way it presented was in the form of OCD. But I took care of this. I just have this residual fear about it, but I am by and large over it. And my claim is that I'm not mentally ill. I am, in fact, though my cognitive abilities have deteriorated considerably because of those stresses I went through during that period of time. I'm still capable, and I was very capable. I consider that in my, throughout my adult life, I was a very mentally capable person. I liked how my mind worked. I enjoyed how my perspective about things, and I really don't. I completely reject any claims that I'm a mentally that I suffer from mental illness. So that is something I wanted to clear my name of with these videos. I think I'm there. I think this pretty much takes care of everything. Yeah. I think I may make one more video. If I don't, I think I'm going to close this one out as if it were my last. So I know I've thanked you for watching this. If anyone is watching this, this couldn't have been fun. And maybe at times there are some curiosities that are piqued because there are some aspects to my life that are odd, abnormal, maybe even unique. But getting through all of this, it couldn't have been easy. And so I appreciate that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really know what to say. I'm not going to. I thought at some point I was going to get into some societal issues, things that have certain aspects of society that have certainly played a major role in my reason for being in this situation. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Thank you for watching. And I would just like to say, as divided as society is, we can, on just a very basic level, we can be good to each other. Regardless of our philosophies, we can just be good to each other, and we don't need to exploit each other. Kindness, paying attention to social etiquette is extremely important, and treating people with dignity. There's so much more that we can do as a society, but just those very basic things is a really major component to it. And it can just simply make someone who is having a really difficult time with life, make them feel better for a period of time. I know that if I'm very discouraged about how people feel, make me feel societally, the state of society really sickens me. It's disgusting, and I see a lot of just really terrible behavior. And if someone does something nice for me, it's pretty impressive how much it sort of brightens my day a bit. It doesn't take away from how jaded I've become about society, and how, when I say, I don't think I like that word, actually. I wish I could. I have a realistic, I think, perspective of how I see society. I see it for what it is, but we have a lot more potential, and we are not. Society is not exhibiting itself the way it could or should. And we can certainly be better as a whole. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop. Just be good to each other, and there's a lot more to do, but just doing that will be pretty helpful. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.